Nightrain want to thank our buds all the way from Brisbane, Broken Skateboarding Co., who made all today's recording possible. You will never fall off your skateboard again if you're wearing the gear made by skaters for skaters. Find them online and tell them Lenny sent you.
Welcome to Nightrain Radio. You're with Jay and Lenny. Mate, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Again, we are alone in the studio with Sid. But we've got a fucking super special guest.
I'm a little bit pumped.
Man, I'm excited. I've been excited for months for this. This is an absolute honour for me personally. I've been a fan of this guy and his work for, geez, man, the better part of, 15 years. Someone I've been looking up to for a long, long fucking time. The co-creator of one of the best shows ever, Kenny versus Spenny, Mr. Spencer Rice. How are you, my friend?
I'm well. How are you guys?
We're good, mate. Good. Thanks for asking. Thanks for coming on the show. We really, really appreciate it, mate. We know you've been busy.
I'm okay. You know, it's the pandemic, or the touring slowed down, so we shot that Paldemic special a few months ago. So I'm, the family keeps me more busy than work these days. So
Definitely. Just on the Paldemic special, real quick. Watched it today a couple of times. Man, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It had the vibe of the old Kenny versus Spenny show, but definitely evolved in a way that reflected you guys as it is today and as society is today. It was awesome.
yeah, I mean, we shot it during a very quarantine period in Toronto, from my perspective, it was very strange because Kenny had sold the show to CBC Gem, the one-off, and didn't tell me about it. Finally told me about it, and a day or so later, contract came in, which was disgusting, frankly. It basically removed me as a partner. You guys have disappeared visually. I don't know why. Anyways, it's okay. And it sort of reduced my role in the partnership to an employee, which was, which I pushed back, and we got into a big contractual fight with lawyers and all that stuff. But anyways, so finally we work it out, and I'm told we're doing a COVID special, and I show up, and I mean, I don't know if this came across, but it felt like it was a trap where Kenny used the COVID special to air his decades-long resentments against me for things that have occurred in our creative partnership. And I was trying to do a COVID special, so it's sort of a train wreck, like everything we do, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did, and I mean, it felt that way as well. It seemed like there were two different agendas at the same time, but it definitely worked well together.
Yes, Kenny always has an agenda, and I basically never do. So that's one reason why the partnership works so well.
It felt like watching it, it absolutely flew by. How long was the process of filming that?
3 days.
Oh, okay. Because absolutely fly by. I wish it went twice as long. I think we all did.
Yeah.
Was there a plan for a series at all, or was it always going to be the one-off?
We have this thing now. There's some creative work for a larger series, which isn't Kenny versus Spenny, but it's with us. And like everything in show business, you throw it up there and see if anybody wants it. To be honest, I prefer playing live with Kenny doing comedy or music, because there's just nothing between us and the work, where with the television business and the film business, there's just so much that gets in the way with the creativity, the raw creativity, which is what I want to do. But having said that, you can't beat the exposure of a television series. So, I mean, we're playing to 150, 300, sometimes 1,500 people, at one time. When you're on TV, you're, 500,000 people see you. So I'm not an idiot, but my preference, it's like that old thing with actors. Oh, I prefer the theater, it's a bit like that for me, but maybe for slightly different reasons. I really love live performing. And with Kenny, it's amazing because we've got this sort of built-in relationship with the audience, and I have a lot of hostility, which I can air out at the live shows, and it's a lot of fun.
I must admit, you mentioned the hostility there. It sometimes feels like it's a bit guilty watching the show because it feels like we're just enjoying you being tormented full time. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
No, that's what it is.
Is it as stressful
exactly
as it looks?
I've managed to separate my ego from it, and that took me maybe a year from when we first started on TV, and I just started accepting, what it was, and I think it's kind of a reflection of the times. You look at wrestling. I always go back to that. Wrestling at one point when I was a kid was a very clear delineation between the good guy and the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then the Attitude Era kicked in, and it was like the good guys were the bad guys or the lame guys. So we try to really stay close to our actual personalities. So for better or for worse, I'm kind of preachy. I'm a bit political, and I'm not politically correct, but people think I am. I'm not a snowflake, but I'm definitely liberal. And so I just stay on that. And if that is in this culture is a bad guy or a lame guy or a preachy guy, I just play it to the hilt because I'm a reverse heel fundamentally. What used to be a heel was for bad behavior. Now it's kind of reversed itself. So
similar to wrestling, though, you guys are just basically turning your real behaviors up to 11, though, right? Like it's quite exaggerated.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. It's obviously the props that we had use of, the locations on those competitions for the old series. Was something that was, purely exaggerated from our general competitive relationship, So, but in terms of, I call it the game face. I never faked being upset. I was upset when you saw me when I was upset.
Yeah,
and it wasn't
some
hard.
of those what's the word I'm looking for here? Responses from yourself.
It was crazy.
Would be pretty hard to fake, I imagine.
Definitely. You're on the edge of that cliff at the end of that episode. That was. It was really intense. Some of that stuff to watch.
I hate to burst your bubble on that moment. What was happening behind the scenes? And this is going back quite a few years. Kenny was really winning all the competitions, though we could argue about that philosophically, I guess. And the network, who was very hands off, would in that particular episode said, Spenny's got to win. So it was one of the few moments that was a little bit, I wouldn't say staged, but where we knew what the outcome was going to be. And there was nothing we could do because in the television business, the broadcaster rules, basically. Yeah. You have to do what they do.
Did you guys
contractually?
Did you guys have a lot of freedom with the network back in the day?
Yeah. That's why it's funny you mentioned that episode, because that is one of the only ones where there was that kind of interference. No, I call it negligence on their part, but it was good fortune in the sense that them not being hands-on. Now, we had sold the original pilot for Kenny versus Spenny in the United States, and it was a lot different. The amount of if I'm on here for an hour, we can get into the weeds of this stuff. But when we first started with USA Network, it was Barry Diller's network. That was the first show. I think it appears on one of the DVDs as an extra feature. They were much more involved in my opinion, a detrimental way. So, for example, we kind of did the show the way we ended up doing it, but the network would come back and say, well, if Kenny sicks a dog on you, then Spenny, you've got to sick 2 dogs on them. And I don't know if you're familiar with Spy versus Spy, the comic from Mad Magazine. Yeah. That was that kind of dynamic where one would one up the other. But ours was personality driven, and they never got it or didn't care. So in a strange way, the show sort of the pilot got pulled. I don't know if you know that halfway through, but we finished it. and then years later, or a couple of years later, sold it in Canada, which was probably the greatest blessing of all, because I'm fairly certain the executives, if it continued on, would have fundamentally ruined the show, because I think what makes it work is staying true to our personalities, not some kind of one-upmanship where we're both kind of the same, trying to one-up each other.
Yeah, okay.
When did the show sort of blow up? I mean, you guys were on, the first season was on a network in Canada. Did the show blow up during that first season, or was it?
Well, that was a CBC, which is the same network, the online version that we just did Paldemic for. And it's our, I don't know if Australia, if you guys have the channel, do you do like Britain Channel 4 and all that stuff? Like, it was our national
channel.
Yeah, that's a cable channel. When we were first on, the first 26 episodes were national. So anybody with the TV could get it. They didn't have to have a special channel. So I guess that was when we, sort of got known. And then we got basically thrown off of the CBC, and Showcase, which was a specialty cable channel, picked us up. But we'd already garnered a certain amount of fans. And by the way, it's extremely rare that a show can get canceled and then get picked up by another network. Usually you're dead on arrival once you've been kicked off. So we got very lucky there. Showcase was smart enough to see we had a fan base, and they grabbed us up. So luck.
That first season's definitely different compared to the rest. It was a lot tamer compared to seasons 2, 3, 4,
right,
and whatever it is.
Right. That's because that was a national network, and we were on at a very odd time slot, which it was almost a mistake. We were on, I think, at 5:30 in the afternoon, which it just didn't make any sense. So right before the national news of Canada, it would usually be me doing a humiliation, which makes no sense, but that's how it actually played out. And then we ran a commercial that was sort of edgy, and they accidentally ran it during what they call the toddler block for very young children. And that's what got the people complaining. And I got a phone call coming in. I'm going to just hang on to and decline. Yeah. So anyways, that's what happened. And so we got really lucky that Showcase picked us up. And yes, the show became much more edgy. And what made it even more edgy was when Kenny went off to work with South Park, because those guys, they're geniuses, but they're mean as fucking hell. And Kenny just became meaner to me, which some people prefer that. So again, I roll with it. You know what I mean?
Well, it made for good television, if nothing else. You mentioned,
Sorry.
You mentioned being.
Oh, sorry, Lenny. You're right, mate. You're right.
You mentioned being, too edgy at times for the national channel, and you also mentioned being PC before. Is it something that you look back on and go, some of this stuff that we said we probably wouldn't be able to get away with nowadays? Does that impact what you have planned for this potential upcoming show?
No. Well, I think like Kenny, first of all, is say what you want about him. He's capable of saying things that might be racist or construed as racist or homophobic. Now, he's a friend of mine. He is none of those things. I wouldn't work with him if he was. It's just his humor. Mm-hmm. But I think I don't go that way with my humor. So I think he's more careful now about certain things. But having said that, his natural state is to sort of push the envelope. I would call him a shock comedian. I can't stand the PC culture. I can't stand the language police. And everybody thinks that that's who I am, that I'm into all that stuff. I'm not sure where that comes from. But I participated in a show that was, my God. I mean, I put on a Ku Klux Klan robe and, channeled a Southern racist. My philosophy on all of that is, if it's comedic, if it's not intended to truly hurt someone, then it should be fair game and should be allowed to happen. But the culture is definitely very sensitive these days. I hate that. I think that's, I live in a world where I assume that not everybody's going to like me. I assume that there's going to be Nazis that hate Jews, and the only thing we have to protect ourselves is what's called the rule of law. So they can say whatever the fuck they want, but they can't do anything that's illegal. I think that's the best you can do in a free society or a quasi-free society. So,
do you think Sorry, I was just going to come in there and ask, do you think some of the episodes that you've done of Kenny versus Spenny back in the day, I mean, Kenny wore blackface at one point, and I mean, there's some pretty... it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because it would
I know...
pass today? Do you think that would something... That
I know, that's what you're asking me, and you're asking me that. I'm trying to answer it by saying that it doesn't bother me when he does blackface because I know he is not a racist. So I'm saying that he probably, given the cultural, dynamic out there, wouldn't do blackface again. Because it's just too risky, and it's become a little. Backlash. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it is a business. This is how we support our families. Yep. So, you don't want to be stupid about it. I mean, I don't think he needs to do blackface to be hilarious. So, so then, you just have to use your common sense. But I think we should always fight against it by saying the kinds of things I said, which is point out the difference between a malignant racist and a racist joke that, that's based on maybe a stereotype that people find uncomfortable. Like you hear about the Jewish guy who walked into a wall with a boner and he broke his nose. I don't see anything offensive about that. I'm Jewish, whatever. If someone not Jewish said that joke, I think I would discern whether there was true hate behind it. You laughed, it's funny. So that's just something comedians have to deal with. I mean, I know Seinfeld, ironically, who's one of the cleanest of comics, he won't play the college circuit anymore as a form of protest against this kind of political correct language police, which I think is great.
Went crazy. They stopped people from physically speaking at colleges just for the sake, because they had a difference of opinion. It's crazy.
Well, it is. I mean, we could talk. I would love to get into what's going on in America because I don't know if you follow my social media. I'm so emotionally wrapped up in what's going on there. But that happens with these right wing. That happens with these right wing speakers, I think. Right. And I don't know. I mean, it becomes a philosophical thing. I think they have the right to be heard. If they're going to be shouted down and booed, I guess they have a right to do that. It's a very tricky situation, what's going on right now in the U.S. So as a liberal, I despise some of these right-wing characters, but I can't be hypocritical and say they have no right to speak. So
if we don't listen to someone else speak, we're not going to learn anything new or another point of view or anything like that. And that's a major part of it, a major problem with it.
Well, I think that's a major part of it. That's a practical part of it. But the other part of it is, you have to have some kind of, baseline consistency with these rules, right? They can't be bent towards one side because it just creates resentment and underground movements. But look, all this is being tested to an incredible degree with what's going on in the U.S. right now, and Trump's not conceding the election, and 70 million people that are really, in my view, believing conspiracy theories and lies. So there's, it's a complicated thing. It's not a simple thing to figure out. But yeah, I think that people should be allowed to speak. And if you want to boo them or protest them, you can do that, but they should be allowed into the institutions to speak. That's my opinion. It's not a popular one these days, but that's what I think.
Do you pay much attention to the comments that you get on your social media? Because I watch it quite closely and tend to agree with most things you say, but there seems to be quite a lot of people who disagree with you as well. Do you pay much attention to the shit that they say?
Well, there's multiple levels of, it depends on the post. If it's a political post, I've been getting obviously a lot of feedback from what we call Trumpers, people that support Donald Trump. And it got to the point that it was, here we go around the mulberry bush, right? They knew what I was going to say. I knew what they was going to say. And it was emotionally draining for me. So I started blocking them. And the old saying that the squeaky wheel gets the oil is very true, because I felt numbers wise, as I started blocking, I maybe blocked 300 or 400 of them, maybe less, 300 or something. It's not nearly as toxic, my page, and they talk about creating echo chambers and all that kind of nifty language that they have, but fundamentally it's my page, right? This is a different kind of publication, my Twitter feed or my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed, and I don't really feel like having if they're a Trumper and they want to have a reasonable discussion with me, I try never to block them. I block the people who go, Biden's a pedophile. They regurgitate QAnon conspiracies, which have been proven beyond any doubt to be absolute. I mean, come on, there's an elite bunch of Democrats that are running a pedophile ring out of a pizza parlor that doesn't even have a basement. Like, it's just, it's so over the top that I realize these people they're not on the same planet I'm on, and I don't need them on my page. So again, is that a contradiction to what I just said? Maybe it is. Like I said, it's complicated.
Well, I don't think it is. I mean, I think it's like you said, it's your feed, and you are still giving the people the right to speak their mind and say what they want to say. However, you've got the right also to not listen, and by blocking those people, all you're doing is just not listening to what they have to say, and I think that's a fair move.
Yeah, and by the way, I really do. I mean, I engage the because to me, there's only one way that you could possibly, to me, support Trump and be somewhat realistic, which is to acknowledge that he's a liar, that he's a cheat, he's possibly a criminal. However, I'm being that person. However, I totally agree with his policies, building the wall, etc., saving the Second Amendment, all those things. Okay, that to me is okay. Well, at least this person is acknowledging what Trump is. To which I say, okay, find someone else. He cannot be the only possible politician that could have your viewpoints and not be someone that lies constantly. I mean, it really is, it's the old cry wolf. Like, I don't know what's true anymore than anything he says. He may be telling the truth. I won't believe him, because that's what happens when you constantly lie.
But the thing is, I think it comes down to this tribal mentality. People don't, like you said, that they don't, it's not about the policies or anything like that. It's about what their team is saying or what their team believes in. They want their team to win.
And that's a perfect way of describing it, because what I've said, similar to what you're saying, is I think a certain segment of the population is so unsophisticated about politics, so possibly unread historically about, just the history of politics in that country, that they see it like team sport, like you're cheering for your sports team. And, Noam Chomsky, who, was one of my intellectual heroes, he said that a fascist dictatorship can hold a bludgeon over your head to control what you do. But in a free country, in order to get that kind of control, you have to control their minds. And one of the main ways they do it is distracting them with materialism, with sports, with entertainment, so that they're anything they can sit and have a nuanced discussion with you about a hockey game or a football game or a soccer game, but ask them how they change a bylaw in their community, and they have no idea. And that really serves the interests of especially conservatives who really have to disenfranchise many people in order to stay in power. Because if people voted for their self-interest, there's a hell of a lot more poor people than wealthy people. So they've been incredibly successful at it. And I think what we're seeing, and in a way, Trump is a gift in the sense that he's, it's like the Wizard of Oz. We see, he's bringing, because he's so bad, because he's so phony, because he's so transparent, he's really pulling the cloak out over how they've managed to keep everybody, stupid, basically. And people are becoming political now that never were before. And I think the lesson for me out of all of this, I'm Canadian. I should follow Canadian politics as closely as I do U.S. politics. Also, to become more engaged. And if Biden's president, don't just go, okay, Trump's done, back to business as usual. No, follow Biden. Be as interested in what Biden does. Speak out when he does something wrong. And that goes against what you're saying, the whole team philosophy, that it's not really about a team. It is at the election, but once the election's over, whoever governs should be held accountable, and people should be engaged.
And that's the problem with the Trump, that there is no accountability at all. And that's
no,
been the issue from the get-go.
Well, here's my take on that. And I love talking about this stuff as opposed to, what's your favorite humiliation? That's what I usually get. But
there's the next question going.
Yeah, I know. Don't you can ask it. Is that there? What did you say? Now I've lost my train of thought. We're talking about
lack of accountability.
Okay. I have actually lost my thought completely.
Sorry,
it will come back.
The Trump administration is just lack of accountability throughout their entire throughout the entire presidency. It's been so.
Yeah,
obvious.
I mean they don't. Yeah, but that you got to keep in mind, and this is the thing, is that even if Biden has won this election, still 70 plus million people are supporting Trump. Oh, I know what I was going to say now, which is, I think what it really is about fear of white people's fear of the future. They won't admit it. They might not even know it, but it might be subconscious. It might be conscious, but it's certainly, they're not going to say it. But and Trump comes close to saying it and doing it. People in his administration, like that Miller guy, who's ironically Jewish, and he's like a fucking, his immigration policies are disgusting. They're afraid of globalism. They're afraid of being a minority in what they perceive as their own country, and that's going to happen demographically. That's just the way things are moving. And I think Trump is the last vestige, I really believe, of that kind of view of America. It's going to move forward. It may take 10 years. It may be over now. I don't know. But all the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, that's why they like Trump, because fundamentally they see that's what he is. And white people are upset about that. They don't like that. They don't like that they're being told they're privileged. I sort of understand it. And I have to live, I have to live with it. Bill Maher, I was watching something today, and I feel bad because I've been calling them stupid and morons. And he said, you really can't do that because it just entrenches them more in their views and they get angry. So I'm not sure how to deal with these people and make them understand that the country is changing. I mean, it changed from slavery. It's just, you can't stop progress. And in a way, make America great again is code for, we want this old America. Yeah. White people are in charge, and some of it's overt, like what he tells the Squad. I don't know if you know how familiar you are, the Squad, or those people of color, the women that are in the Congress, to go back to their own country, even though they were born in America. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's a toxicity in their history that is not truly worked out yet. And nobody really wants to talk about it honestly, especially on that side, because they'd have to admit some things that are very unpleasant.
One of my favorite things to watch has been a lot of pretty well-off white people being told to wear a mask and then claiming oppression. Whereas,
oh my God,
it's similar to Australia. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, talk to somebody who's really lived in tyranny. Maybe someone in Russia who was imprisoned by the communists, or imprisoned by Castro, or a Holocaust survivor. It's so privileged and disgusting that they would call that tyranny. I mean, I like to bag on that. I call her the blonde bimbo from Fox, Tommy Lauren, who really, let's be honest, she's only doing this because she's good looking. Let's be honest.
That's the only reason we're doing this show, actually.
There you go. She's a shill for she may believe this stuff. It almost doesn't matter. But it's just, it's beyond anything to me that wearing a mask during a pandemic and what Trump is doing and has done for his own political purposes, I don't even think that's a theory. It's just a fact. It's horrible. I mean, all these people should be taken with a leash and collar and pulled into these, emergency rooms and see these people on ventilators. The numbers are scary. They can put up all the statistics they want. Well, only 94% get it, but there's still, it's hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, till
they're a quarter
million
million.
Their mom or their nan or something.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who's got COVID. So I'm a prime person that could go, well, fuck, it's all bullshit, but I'm not, because I actually believe the experts. But part of the whole Trump movement is an anti-intellectual movement. It's an anti-expert movement. They call them elites. What's wrong with being elite? It means that someone spent their life studying whatever subject it was. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But it's bad for them. So they've come up with that Dr. Fauci is full of shit, that he's part of this massive political, they're calling it the Great Reset. Have you heard that?
No.
Yeah, that's the Great Reset that's happening, according to the right wingers, that they're going to reset and make the country socialist.
Wow.
Meanwhile, they have no problem or even understand that the government gives money to huge corporations, which is a form of socialism. Like they're I hate to say it, they're ignorant. They're ignorant. And the good thing about ignorant is you can become unignorant, but you have to want to.
Yeah, you can always learn.
I definitely think over the last 12 months, though, things have gotten worse with people. People have become either more vocal about it, or they're just thinking a lot more. And I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that everyone's been
of course, because they're afraid, man. They're
stuck in their minds.
Afraid because they're seeing it. They're seeing it happen. And when I say subconsciously, I really mean that. So you have a lot of decent people that support Trump. I am sure of it, right? The ones I hear about that I block, they're the toxic few. They're toxic. They're loud. They're going to make a big impression. They're going to basically parrot everything they hear on Fox News. They're going to buy into all the conspiracy theories. But there's a huge swath of people that aren't like that. But they're afraid. They're legitimately afraid because they don't understand what socialism means. They've demonized that word very successfully, and not to mention that even if they don't like it, it's going to change. The demographics have changed in the country, so they're going to have to roll with the punch, or they're going to be the resistance, and we're just going to have more division. And you're right. The reason why it's getting worse is because their greatest fears, whether they admit it or not, is happening. And it's happening faster than they want. They wanted another 4 years of Make America Great Again. Well, they're not getting it. So they're getting even more upset, and it's, I don't really think a lot of them really understand the whole dynamics of it. Like what are they afraid of and why? Why should they be afraid? Why shouldn't they be afraid? I'm sure that when slavery, one sec, I'm sure when slavery was ended, there was a bunch of people who were like, "Oh my God, my whole economy is this is how I make my money with these slaves. They're going to take my slaves." Shit changes, thank God, and there's no stopping it. They can whine, they can lie. It's happening, and I think they're scared, and that's why it's getting worse.
It's fucking crazy, man. It's a shitty situation. But do you think that Trump will concede in the end, or do you think he'll be forced out?
Yes. Well, I think he'll. I kind of like. I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Edward Norton.
Yeah. Who's
a great actor, not Ed Norton from The Honeymooners, also Art Carney, a great actor. But he did a little tweet yesterday, and it went into the comments. So it was about four or five different tweets, which was probably a paragraph or two when you read it all. And he said, don't buy into this idea that Trump is not conceding because he wants to create this network that's going to compete with Fox. So he's still going to have a voice, and maybe he can run again. He'll be too old probably, and he might be in prison, but he technically could run again, right, in 2024. So he said, don't believe that. That's sort of the story everyone is saying, that this is a chess game he's playing in order to create a grievance so that he can move forward with holding on to these 70 million people who will either subscribe to his media channel and he'll make money, or they'll support him in another one, or both, right? And what Edward Norton said, which is, this is not what it is at all. This has to do with, he knows how much trouble he's in legally in the Southern District of New York for sexual assaults, tax evasion, and fraud, and that he is a scared rat right now, and he's playing poker. And what Norton said is, he doesn't have a good hand. He's bluffing. So he's trying to pardon himself, but the pardons won't work in the state in the state of New York. It's just that it just mechanically is not allowed. He can't pardon himself there. So he's again, it's theoretical. He's looking at jail time, like, for real. I never believed it. There's no way they're going to take a ex-president and put him in prison. A lot of my very intelligent friends who know politics say that it's absolutely could happen, and it probably will happen with him. We'll see. But either way, he will concede. He will leave. He won't do it like a gentleman, because he's not. And that's just what I think will happen. But,
I have to assume if Donald Trump gets locked up, there's going to be a lot of other very rich people going, holy fuck, if it can happen to him, it can happen to any of us. It's going to potentially start a big wave.
I think he's, let's be honest. I mean, I think he's a con man. I think he's maybe the greatest con man that ever lived. If you don't want to call him a con man, call him a marketer. Both are the same to me, to be honest. Marketing is everything, right? Like, you can buy a cereal that's in a certain color box with a certain print and certain words on it. All of a sudden, that's your cereal. It's marketing, and he's a brilliant marketer. You have to give him that. He wasn't expecting to win the presidency. From everything I've read, he was a marketing plan for his brand to get publicity, because that's what he is all about. And he's a con man. I mean, Trump University. We can go down the list of the bankruptcies of everything. He's a promoter. He doesn't really. He's not a businessman. He's a failed businessman. But look how far he got. So you have to give him credit, even if it's an evil credit. He did it. It's just, it's not going anywhere else. He's desperate. He's in a corner right now. I think he really thinks he might go to jail. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's one of the two things, right? He's either building for a post-presidency media conglomerate that's going to be right of Hitler, or he's just absolutely panicking because he's managed to stave off all these prosecutions. My understanding is because of the presidency, they can't do anything with him. But he's looking at 60 days, and he's going to be flooded with all kinds of legal problems. If I was him, I'd take off and go live in Russia with Putin. Let Putin give him a mansion. And to be honest, I'm such a kind fool that as much as I hate him, I don't even care if he goes to prison. I just don't want him.
Just want him off the
as
TV.
The president. Yeah, no, that'll never happen. But I want him off of the power. Out of the Oval Office. I do.
He's certainly done a less than ideal job of this whole pandemic situation.
Less than ideal? Yes, I would say less than ideal.
I'm trying to be nice here. Do you think, you mentioned your live touring before, how do you think this pandemic is going to impact your live touring moving forward? Do you think it
has. I mean, we have a gig in my place I live, Kingston, Ontario. Kenny and I have a show, but it's a 50 cap, so we end up doing three or four shows. Wow. 2 a day usually, where before we would do one show. You go with the flow. The shows, they usually have some kind of see-through plexiglass thing in front of it. The meet and greets, we wear a mask and we stand back. So, I mean, going with the punches is how I've lived my life, right? And
so no more prostate exams then?
Well, that definitely not during COVID, and I'm not upset that I might have put that down for good. What I always thought would be funny is I do a final one, maybe a televised one, and like a Mountie. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mounties. Comes out with like a pillow with the rubber glove and the lube on it, as the with music and a band. Spenny's final thing, but no, definitely nothing like that during COVID. But COVID's going to be another 6 months. The vaccines look promising, so you roll with the punches.
In saying that, though, if they are facing away from you, there's less chance of them coughing on you. So maybe stick to the prosthetic.
I don't know if COVID has anal contagion of any kind. Look, the way that happens is, and of course we haven't been to Australia, so you've never seen a live show, but that was our closer, right? And I always tried to twist it, and I think absolutely rightfully so, that our sick, demented audience wants to see something crazy in a live show. Now, one thing for sure, Kenny won't do it, so I have to do it. Not that I like to do it, but I have to do it because he'll talk about how much he loves the fans, but he's not going to do anything humiliating, which is what they want. So I question his degree of love for the fans. Plus, he knows that I'll do it because he won't do it.
He'll do it anyway.
But what I do is, in that case, I give them a speech. How many of you would like to see a humiliation? The crowd goes crazy. I tell them how Kenny's never done one live. I've been doing them all the time. But if you're gonna do it, you're gonna get the Spenny lecture. So I didn't just finger a guy's asshole. I talked about prostate cancer and homophobia. Yeah. I turned it into a stupid Spenny lesson, and comedically, it was a great finisher for the show. But maybe if we ever do make it out to Australia, we'll have to do it there. But we sort of play roughly a similar circuit. So, you've got to change the show up. You can't go back to the same city and do the same show you've done. So I won't say what we're doing now, but it's different. It's not quite as, how am I going to beat fingering a guy's ass, right? Like, how am I going to top that? So at some point you just have to say that again. Yeah, I guess. But that's not going to happen.
With the live shows, I mean, if you're in a band, you write a set list, you go up and you know what you're going to do before you take the stage. With your live shows, how much is pre-planned, how much is predetermined, or how much of it is reading the audience?
You have to understand, Kenny is hilarious, but he's also has what I would call severe ADD. Right. And he'll admit it, and he's been diagnosed as it. So he's in terms of the structure of the show, I usually come out with a piece of paper or two that just has subject headings. And he gets so involved in making his jokes and doing whatever he's doing that I have to hold the paper in front of him and point to what he should be talking about, which is wholly unprofessional. But it's like our audience are such idiots that it's like they've never seen a real stand-up show, so they don't even know. And Kenny says, the more of a train wreck it is, the funnier it is, and that's probably true. So, and I bitch about it while we're doing it, so it becomes content. So to answer your question, we're somewhat prepared, but every show is totally different. I like to interact with the audience, so you never know how that's going to go. Of course, that's made a little bit more difficult with COVID. Mm-hmm. But it's a nice balance between we're prepared, and keep in mind, we've been friends for decades and decades. So, if we want to pull some story out of our hat from in our 20s, people will find it funny. We can do that always. So we're never at want for material. It's just, it's very difficult for us to keep track of what we've performed before, so that's what the sheet's there for. I know that if it's on the sheet, it's something new that we can do in this particular gig. You know what I mean? In this particular show.
You also play live music. You have a band and you play live blues, country, rock sort of stuff, correct?
Yes. Well, I do mostly now. I mean, the problem with the band is even with the 3-piece band, with the level that I'm at, and I don't mean skill-wise, I mean commercial-wise, what's a reasonable expectation, what the bars pay split 3 ways, or even if I get a little more, with the cost of hotels and gas and food and everything when you're on the road, it becomes financially untenable. So most of what I do now is solo, which is really I like playing with the band because you're with your friends or whatever. Sometimes I do a duo with my friend Tony Gray, but mostly I do it by myself, which is, I was younger, and I was friends with David Carradine, the actor, who told me about a guy named John Hammond. I'd never heard of him. He came to Toronto. I went to see him, and he was a solo blues artist, and he blew my fucking mind. And, this is decades ago, and I made a decision there that if I'm going to do music, this is what I want to do. And pretty much, I'm not saying I'm as good as him or anything, but I play a lot of different kinds of music than he would play. And he's a Grammy Award winning motherfucking amazing artist. And I'm good, but I'm not that. But it changed my life. So being a solo musician has been a real goal for me that I've accomplished, and it doesn't pay great, but I love doing it.
Was music in the back of your mind back in the when you first started filmmaking?
Music was before any of that. I was in high school. I was in bands and stuff like that. There was never any kind of pretense or attempt to become a commercial artist. That's never even occurred to me, and maybe it should have way back when. But no, it was always just fun. Whatever gigs you could scrounge up. Now, all these years later, I'm a much better musician. But let's be honest, I'm playing blues, classic rock, and country. My daughter is listening to K-pop. There's a huge divide there. So, a lot of, and this is sort of sad for me, but, whatever, I get a lot of people will come to see me because of Kenny versus Spenny, play music. And, the younger set, which probably were too young to watch the show when it aired, they're really there to get a selfie with me. And they would have no idea the genealogy of the music I'm playing. They would not know any of the songs, especially this ones from the 30s and the 20s, a century ago. So I really, to my detriment, follow my muse in terms of my love of music. And, the price I pay for it is, I go on these tours. I don't make a ton of money. I play, in bars, not in theaters, and certainly not in stadiums or arenas. And that's okay for me. That's okay.
You kind of preempted a question I was going to ask. With the crowds that come along, even if they are there, as you mentioned, for a selfie, are they still respectful of the tunes, or are they kind of just, do you get drunk dickheads yelling out, "Check my prostate" after every song and stuff like that?
No, a little bit of that, but no, I mean, I honestly don't think that, I'm a big believer in literacy is not just words, right? Mm-hmm. There's comic literacy. I find that our audience today is completely lost on ironic humor. They seem to understand parody because that's pretty simple, and they understand blue or dirty humor. So the comedic literacy is pretty low. And I would say the same with musical literacy, which it's not, again, you got to roll with the punches, man. I mean, I can't be a hypocrite here, right? They might like a Rolling Stones song that I do, maybe, but I don't really know how they process a Blind Lemon Jefferson song or a Robert Johnson song or a, Blind Willie McTell song or a Lightning Hopkins song. I mean, those are my favorite ones to play. I don't really think they process it on any meaningful level. I could be wrong. I mean, they certainly see that I have skills, and I've played shows where I was quite happy with the lack of talking while I played, but when you play in a bar, you have to assume they're going to talk. That's the old juke joint. That's what people do. They dance, they talk, they scream, they laugh. So I'm not expecting silence, but when I get it, it's nice. It means they're listening.
I find there's this weird thing, because something you touched on, a lot of our friends here are in originals bands who just don't get the credit they deserve. Yet you go and watch a covers band at a bar and the crowd is massive. Do you think there's a point where people just don't want to hear anything new?
Yes.
They know what they know.
I'm one of those people. I mean, yes, of course. I mean, it's not so much that they don't want to hear anything new; they want to hear something familiar, right?
Yeah.
There's two sides of a different coin in a way, and I get that. I mean, but because I play, I'm a little different. But I stopped listening to new music, like, or even keeping track or listening to the radio decades ago. Now I'm old. I'm pushing 60, dude. I'm 50. I'm 58 in March. I'm an old guy with hair dye, and so I'm way out of that thing. Here's my theory on it. I do have a theory about when you're young and you're in school and you don't have a lot of responsibility. You're not working yet. You don't have a family yet. Most of the time, that's true. You have a lot of time with which to engage in whatever art you enjoy, movies, music, comedy. And therefore you can get into it in a level that, you really don't have time for later in life. And I think that time, when you get deeply into that music, sort of puts a stamp on your soul. And that's kind of your thing, So I'm always interested when I meet people who are constantly listening to new music. I mean, I respect it, and I'm kind of weary of it at the same time, like, because I have no desire to hear, and it's not that the music's bad. That would be a terrible thing to say. It's just that we love what's familiar. We love what we can associate with, times in our lives that we're free living and fancy free and all that stuff. I mean, I think that's what it is, to be honest with you.
There's definitely a romance in, like, reminiscing about, that's the song that I got my first blowjob to, or something like that. Like, those old songs from when you're 16 to 20 or whatever, they're the best times of your life.
Blowjob to? I'm curious now that you brought
what was that, sorry?
What was the song that you got your first blowjob to?
I think Jay was just singing to me. I don't know what you were saying.
How could he sing with his mouth, with your cock in his mouth?
It's not that big.
Yeah, my mouth was barely open.
Yeah, you could do it. You could do it through a straw.
That was a Kenny joke, and it just stunned you. You didn't even laugh. Okay, but anyway. If Kenny had said that, you would have laughed.
If it was one of your jokes, I would have laughed. But Kenny's, not so much.
Okay. So that's my theory on that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. I don't want to be, I really have no interest in staying hip. I think if you're in the business and you're a producer, then you're sort of obligated to sort of know what's going on. But it's really funny because last night, my wife was out, and when my wife's away, my oldest, well, not really my oldest daughter that I live with climbs into bed with me, and we usually watch a movie. So she said, and normally I like watching cartoons that are funny, but she wanted to watch this documentary on a K-pop group. And I know K-pop very little about it, but I thought a documentary, and sure enough, it was a documentary on a band called Black and Pink. And it was interesting because, this is what is selling now. It's a far cry from what I'm doing. I'll tell you that, man. It is. It's like a different planet. And it was wild. Like these kids, they grow up in this record company that they pulled them out of school, and it's like an entertainment concentration camp. They grow up in, and they're like, they're the 14 hours a day. They learn dancing and singing, and they're put together in different combinations till they hit the right one, and then they make a record, and then they're hugely successful. But it's just that whole process to me just seemed so not what art is to me. Like, my God, it just seems so formal and rigid, and
there's no heart to it. There's no soul to it.
I don't like to say that because these girls sing better than I'll ever sing. They'll certainly dance better than I'll ever dance. I really try not to be judgmental. So I was very careful.
As individuals, I mean, the scene itself, it just seems like a bit of a less heartless, more heartless.
Well, what is it called? The EDMs, the light thing with the DJs. I mean, to a guy like me,
electronic dance.
Yeah, electronic. This is. it's so unreal to me, but it is what's happening. And it's the same thing I'm saying. I'm going to tie it all up into a beautiful bow. It's the same thing what I'm saying about, the political changes that are happening in the States. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I'm not going to get the world to listen to my blues music and not go to EDM concerts and K-pop concerts. You have to accept change and roll with it. My way of rolling with it is to be stubborn and go out and find 6 people who listen to me in a bar.
So
that's my choice.
There's going to be no acoustic reimagining of Gangnam Style in your set anytime soon.
No, but that's a great idea, actually, because part of my set, because people come to see me because of Kenny versus Spenny, is I've written some comedy songs. Don't Vote Trump is one. There's a porn song that I wrote about pornography. Yeah. I've done a parody song, which is it's an anti-parody song as I'm parodying a song. Anyways, it's a bit layered, but I have to give them a little bit of the comedy, just because I'm rolling with it, baby.
How many times?
You have to.
How often do you get someone yelling out "Play Grandpa, Grandpa" during a set?
A lot. A fair number, and I don't want to. Give away, but that has something to do with the new closing of the show now that I don't give the prostate exams. But yeah, I mean, that, again, they want me to get mad. Like, I get it. I'm not an idiot, right? Kenny always says a mad Spenny is an angry Spenny is a funny Spenny. And it's very easy for me to get mad because obviously I've put decades of hard work into music where Kenny didn't even play a chord, didn't even tune the guitar. And I'm pretty sure that's more famous than anything I'll ever do. So it's very easy to channel anger about that. I think it's misplaced anger. Again, if you roll with it, you roll with it. So I just make a joke of it. Now I've actually got a good answer to it, which I'll use in the live show with Kenny and in the music shows when someone yells it out. But it's more likely to happen when I come out with the guitar in a Kenny versus Spenny live show than it is with my music shows.
You're definitely right about anger being entertaining, which makes me ask, and at the risk of breaking kayfabe here, how is the Iron Sheik in real life? Is he as absolutely batshit crazy as he looks?
Worse. He when he did Kenny versus Spenny, he was mostly in a van smoking crack and drinking beer.
Right. Okay.
He's, so I mean, you need any more information? I mean, at that age, if you're still doing that, you're fucking.
How's the heart holding up? He's not young.
No, he can barely walk anymore. Basically, he's got his little thing. You wind him up. Hulk Hogan faggots. Madison Square Garden. That's his thing. That's about all he can. I because I know the Megan brothers who handle him. They're his management and they're his friends, and which is funny because he's Iranian and they're Jews, identical twin Jews. What I like to call Mengele's wet dream, and they told I pitched them. I said, look, I've got an idea for a show where every week when the show's on, it's the Iron Sheik doing a different job, like selling insurance. And then I quickly realized as I started talking to them and him that's it, that he's got that one gear and that's all he has. There's not just him getting angry and screaming about Hulk Hogan and B. Brian Blair and all, he goes off on a cue, the ultimate warrior faggot.
Fuck his ass, make him humble.
So, and of course, I thought that's even funnier if every job, that's all he does. He's selling cars. He's
I want to see him mow
people.
Lawns. Mowing lawns would be great, I think.
Yeah, talking to himself.
It's so fucking hot.
Anyways.
That
was one of my...
Was that surreal for you? Like, actually, because similar to yourself, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. Is it surreal having the Iron Sheik walk into your TV show?
Yes, that was pretty cool. I wish it was a younger version and a less crackhead version of him, but yeah, but I have met a lot. I've met a lot of wrestlers through the comic book convention circuit, which I do, which is just a complete whorish money grab, but I'm happy to do it. where you sit at a table and sign autographs and have pictures taken.
Is it a bit of fun?
I spent like 3 days. Oh yeah, they're fun. I spent 3 days with Jake the Snake, a sober Jake the Snake, and he was wonderful. Some of them are so big that you can't even get to them. I'm a celebrity. But if Ric Flair shows up, the lineup to see him is so big, I can't even go and shake his hand, but so yes. I mean, I'm it's funny because the whole political thing I've been going through. And by the way, let me make this perfectly clear. I have never behaved like this about any other Republican politician. This is singularly my reaction to Donald J. Trump. Yeah. But having been through this and the emotions that I've invested in it and the anger that I feel, I can't even look at wrestling right now. It just seems so not important to me now. And not to mention that, historically, my love of wrestling goes back to comedy and really old school wrestling from the 70s when I was a kid. The product I see now, of course, as I'm very careful to say, it's not worse or better. It's just not one that I'm as interested in as much as the old one.
Well, you're not missing much at the moment because they're doing it in empty buildings, and it's pretty fucking boring. To be honest,
I'll be honest with you, it's just too athletic for me.
Yeah, right.
It's become too athletic. I'm not interested in athletic with wrestling. I'm interested in monsters and managers and craziness. And, it's still there a little bit, but it's not like what I remember. But, again, the whole political thing is really I've called it the greatest reality show that ever will be. Donald Trump's presidency. I mean, it's every day. It's got twists and turns that you couldn't even imagine. You've got a super villain who's president of the United States, in my view. You've got all his enablers who are like Batman's villains had their helpers villains. And it's just, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't entertaining.
It does feel like the pitch to a bad sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say a reality show because that's what it is. I mean, don't even call it a sitcom. It's a reality show. And that's his approach to it. I mean, his approach is to be on TV as much as possible. He even says in his tweet, "Stay tuned." I mean, that's an old radio and television. Stay tuned next week when,
Same Trump time.
This is who he is.
He took our tagline.
Yeah, this is exactly who the guy is. And, so I'm repulsed and entertained simultaneously, but I have to say I'm entertained, and maybe it's easier to be entertained because I'm Canadian, right? Which I get a lot of. Why, Spenny, why aren't you more interested in Canadian politics? Well, number one, I don't have a problem with my prime minister. Number two, it's a nuclear power, the United States. I think it's a great country with all of its problems. I've lived there for 13 years. I have a family there. It's just not something that, if it was George W. Bush, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't be as emotionally invested in this. It's singularly Donald Trump, a guy that I would have disliked if I met him before he was in politics. The whole gold, the whole suit, everything's formal and everything's about attention and privilege. It makes me sick. It's not who I am at all. I despise that whole culture.
I heard Tom Green talk about Donald Trump when he was on The Apprentice. He spoke about how he was basically the exact same person that you see on television today behind closed doors. He was still that same arrogant prick there and then as as president.
Is that a surprise? I mean, that's exactly.
You'd think some of it might be a show, but none of it's all authentic.
Was Tom on The Apprentice? Was he on the celebrity version?
I believe
yeah,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
with Dice.
Okay, so wow, so that's meaningful because he actually met the guy, but I'm not surprised. And let me just say this: Tom Green, who's a friend of ours, is without question one of the most innovative comedians that has left his mark. And there'd be no Kenny versus Spenny without him. There'd be no Jackass without him. And I don't think, as popular as he is and as loved as he is, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves for his contribution to be as any kind of artist. I don't care if you're a musician, a painter, an actor, is to have your own style. that's fresh and unique. That's the high water mark. And I think he achieved it. And as a Canadian, I'm very proud. But no one was doing what he did when he had his little local show in Ottawa, which is, about a 2-hour drive from where I live. Having farm animals at his parents' house, shitting and pissing all over the place. And with the punchline being, but Mom, you told me you loved animals. I mean, like, this is, no one had ever seen anything like it.
And he copped a lot of
and
shit
I always,
for it, but he still pushed through and became a household name.
Well, because he got MTV, and he got the cover of Rolling Stone. And, there's always an executive, who's good. There's plenty of bad ones, but there's always one who's going to find something and champion it. Someone championed Tom Green at MTV, and the world is better for it, in my view, comedically. And so again, I can say how much I don't like the TV business. I mean, I love television. I just don't like the waiting. I don't like all the interference and all that stuff. But it's a necessity to being on TV and getting that huge swath of exposure.
Well, worked out well for
you. How long is it, boys? Because I can hear rumbling upstairs. I'm going to have to go pretty soon.
That's all right, man. We might quickly duck into some fan questions, if that's okay. We've had a bunch of people send us some messages for you, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
By the way, it's coming.
I noticed that was up. When see, my rule is December 1st. When does the Christmas tree go up for you?
My wife, I'm Jewish, but I love Jesus, so I'm a strange bird. But Jesus was, anyways, that's a whole other discussion.
Jesus was
my
Jewish.
Pardon?
Well, Jesus was Jewish.
Yeah, was Jewish, but the Jews don't acknowledge him as and I'm not sure I acknowledge him as anything other than a man that may or may not have lived, but a philosopher and a teacher. But anyways, but my wife's very Christmas oriented. We've got, I live with 2 kids here, my kids. I've got kids in California as well. She's gotten me to love Christmas, put it that way. I can't even believe I'm saying it, but it's
a good time.
It's a nice feeling, and the feeling makes a difference.
Here's a little philosophy before we get into the stupid fan questions, because I can tell you almost every one of them, which is that I have a very pragmatic view of all this stuff. As long as you don't believe it's true, you're golden.
Yeah.
So, I don't believe in Santa Claus. I don't believe in, but just enjoy what it is. It's creativity. It's human creativity. Same with religion. Same with the horoscopes. None of it's probably true. It's all human creative endeavors. And rather than thinking of it as true and fighting for it, just embrace what it is.
Just enjoy
it. And love, as soon as you start saying it's true, then you get into lunatic land, in my opinion.
Well, I completely agree. Jay, let's hit the fan question. So there has been quite a resurgence online, it feels like, for Kenny versus Spenny. Have you seen that there's quite a large group that I believe Sebi runs, or maybe is an admin for, just called Fans of Kenny versus Spenny? Are you familiar with that group on Facebook?
Yeah, but I've never really looked at it closely, to be honest.
Well, that's where we've pulled these questions from anyway.
Facebook page, which Kenny finally made me an administrator on, so I could money grab celebrity voicemails. And whatever, I'll post, he's nice about it. We could post. Kenny is much more, at least used to be. He got into this whole online social media stuff years before I did. So now he's like over it, kind of, in a way. But yeah, I mean, I think there's almost 300,000 on the Kenny versus Spenny page. I have about 76,000 on my Facebook page. 25,000 on my Twitter page, 15,000. I'm way behind Kenny. I mean, more people I think like him, which I have no problem admitting, but I also started late. So
that's true.
Like all those things, they're boutique when they start, right? But now everybody's on it. So it's very hard to get your numbers up like you could 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But I think the fact that the Paldemic's out now, and surely you'll see a bit of movement from here.
Whatever. I figure I'm breaking even with all the Trumpers on the block. that great line from the band, we're just trying to break even, from
All right, so look, mate, first question we've got here is from, what do we got? Jonathan Brown. It's actually regarding the fans of Kenny vs. Spenny Facebook group, sorry.
Right. I know that name, and I should know more about him, but I guess you'd say he's a big supporter of what we do. But I don't know who he is or what he does or why he does it. But anyways, go ahead.
He definitely seems like a big supporter, but his only question to you is, could you ask him why Spenny refuses to accept his invitation to join this group?
I don't think I've even know that there. I don't think I even know that I've been asked to join the group. That's number one, and that's really the only answer I have. I don't think I've ever said I don't want to join the group or saw that I could and not done it. So I'll look for it, I guess.
Well, I'm sure when they say this, they'll re-invite you anyhow. There are quite a lot of questions about.
I'm sure the way social media is different than what people think. Probably, like I mostly use Twitter. I find that it's a bit more intelligent. And maybe I'm wrong, but I find it. So I really just use it to post shit, either funny shit or promotion shit. And then if I'm in the mood, I'll look at the comments and try to humorously respond to usually the haters.
Yeah.
Upsets people that don't hate me. Why do you always give them so much attention? I have no answer for that other than it's easy to be a smart ass prick to those people.
There's definitely more productive ways to spend a day than fucking watching social media all day. There's quite a few questions about another season, but you kind of touched on that before. You are working on something different, so we'll skip over those ones. From Ben, how different was your life pre versus post Kenny versus Spenny?
Wow. I guess I don't think I've changed much, but I think my life has changed. I mean, I was just like everybody else, going from job to job, trying to figure out what I wanted to do because what I wanted to do hadn't paid me very well, which was music at the time. And then Kenny and I made a comedy movie with our friend Bobby, if you remember Bobby from First to Left.
Yeah.
We did like a feature length video with him called The Last Days of Toronto. But there was no payday in any of this. It was just pure love of being creative. And then we did a movie called Pitch, and we were sort of gifted the equipment to make it. And then we found a guy who gave us $250,000, who's since passed away. So we made that movie. That never made us money other than the fees we took from doing, from the $250,000. So, it's the hustle and bustle of life, trying to make a buck. And when Kenny versus Spenny happened, it was the first time it was just like, wow, I got money in my bank account. I can go to a store and buy stuff and, and not think that much about it. And then when it hits you that that's not going to last forever, you've got to sort of go back into your thinking mode of how am I going to make money and how am I going to support my family and myself. So yes, it absolutely affected me, but I really don't think I've changed that much. And I don't think Kenny has either, to be honest with you. He's always been an egomaniacal, manipulative, what's the Machiavellian sort of person. And I've always been the sort of too nice, maybe a bit of a pushover, intellectually curious type of person.
Well, it's a hell of a cocktail. It makes for good TV. I'll say that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that's just dumb luck. Our fathers were friends, man, and we've known each other forever. And we happened to, roughly in high school, start to spend a lot of time together. And we never envisioned ever what's happened. It just slowly happened.
I mean, it's cool to see. I mean, most of the show is you guys, fighting each other, of course, in these competitions. However, the Who Can Smoke More Weed episode, it was really cool to see you two seem like you got along just as old school mates again, just sitting back smoking weed for a couple of days. It was really cool to see. Well,
I know you guys are weed proponents because I've seen some of your stuff on your Facebook page. When I used to smoke weed, it was so bad, the weed. It was full of seeds, and it was usually from Mexico. And you'd have to smoke about 3 or 4 joints to get a buzz. Where nowadays, again, keeping my age in mind, with the dispensaries and CBDs and fucking dabs and all this fucking shit, buds and chronic and all this stuff, it's so strong. So I think in retrospect, people said that we got along in that episode. To be honest, I don't remember ever thinking that. That was sort of an afterthought that the fans had. I don't know if it was mentioned. Maybe one of the camera guys mentioned. I don't remember if we ever said you guys are getting along in the show. Did we? Was that
maybe? I can't remember. I can't recall.
It was just much less hostile, I found.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Well, I hated being high. My just so you know, I know you guys are weed guys. I think it should be legal 100,000%. I don't think it should be as culturally important as it is for some people with the, and don't take this the wrong way, but 420 and fucking hemp underwear and CBD oils and just smoke the fucking joint and shut up. You know what I mean?
Culture's ridiculous.
How much it would be annoying. So it's a little annoying to me, the culture aspect of it. But I didn't like having to smoke dope for that episode. Most people would think, oh, great, he gets to go smoke a joint. The same way I didn't like being on acid with an octopus on my head. It wasn't enjoyable, right? We're still working. So, but yeah, I don't remember. I could see watching the episode when we were cutting it and saying, yeah, boy, we were getting along, which is kind of funny. But I don't know if we acknowledged it at the time.
On the flip side to that, one of the other questions here, it's the second last one, so we won't keep you much longer.
Thank you.
Was there ever an episode or a challenge or even a humiliation that was damn near breaking point for you just to go, fuck this, I'm out, no more of this shit? Because you said that quite a lot on the show, but was there any that were legitimate?
Like a callus, right? Like the longer we did the series, the more I became climatized to the humiliations, right? Mm-hmm. It got to the towards the end where it's like, what am I doing? Tongue scraping. Okay, they're done. Gotta go. It's like, very, I became immune to them almost. But in the first season, I don't remember the competition, but Kenny had arranged a humiliation where we went into this really dingy apartment building that was very near the house. And there was a transvestite who tied me up to a, like a cross, basically, almost like a crucifixion, obviously with no nails, and was going to whip me. And I was in my underwear, and there was 2 cameras there to cover it. And I just remember feeling really vulnerable. And Kenny saying, I'm going to pull off your underwear, and being horrified that even though I knew that would never air, I didn't even want to have anything like that because I don't trust anyone. And I got so upset that I tore down the rack, which was apparently a few $1,000s. That rack, this poor guy, I don't know if he complained production, but I broke it. But I literally, freaked out. I mean, I lost it. And there was a few moments like that where I've lost it. And it's funny the way people think that things are scripted, that, like when with hockey sticks on the drunk episode, the drinking one, where I'm like smashing bottles and stuff. Like I'm a guy, when I'm wasted and I get violent sometimes, and
I'm a shit drinker. That episode reminded me of me. I black out. I carry on like an absolute goose when I drink. So I was super touched by that one.
Good. But yeah, that's definitely me. I've slowed down a lot on all things drugs and alcohol as I get older, and especially with children and being in a wonderful marriage. I love that. I saw somebody say that, you want to live a kind of life where it's what you're doing is so good and important that you can't fuck it up by getting drunk. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm almost at that point now in a weird way. But anyways, yeah, that stuff's all bad. I mean, when I realized that kids listen to us, which is so insane to me. I don't think Kenny feels the responsibility. I guess he does, actually. That's not fair. But I have to say that alcohol abuse and drug abuse, it all leads nowhere. And it's very easy to do.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Completely.
Well, when you're young and you feel completely powerful and nothing could go wrong. But as you get older and you see the people who don't let that go, it's, and again, it'd be so easy for me to be like a rap guy and say how cool, drugs and crack and everything is, but it's really not. I mean, it's just, you have to have a life without that. I think if you want to have a decent life, unless you're one of those people that can do stuff. No, he's fucked, right? Like, no, I mean, if that can occasionally do cocaine or occasionally do heroin and smoke dope and get drunk once in a while, and it doesn't become a addiction, a staple in your life. If you can do that, power to you. But I've never really been able to do that. I tend to go when I go, like you, like Jay, like
exactly, man.
Yeah. Well, be careful with that.
I'm a dad myself. I know exactly what you're saying. Having kids definitely slowed me down. I can't do what I used to do. It tires me out, man. And then trying to be a parent the next day fucks me.
And physically, yeah. I was just going to say, yeah. Drinking is very hard on the body, man. Especially if you're doing shots and going for it. And yeah, I can't. On the road, that's where I learned my lesson the hard way, because when we're on the road, everyone's buying you drinks, like everyone. Do a shot, Spenny. Do a shot. This, that. Plus, you've got your bottle. And what I found was, if we went out, we don't do tours as long as we used to, but we do 10 or 2 week tours. By day 5 of being hungover every night, then it starts to affect your ability to fucking make it to the show on time, to feel good, to be funny on stage, to remember what you're doing. So. Yeah, it's like a tidal wave of fucking hangover that just never goes away. I can't do that anymore.
No, I completely get it.
I just say no. Sorry, dude. I'll drink much, I'll get a buzz, but that's it. I'm not gonna.
No shots.
I'm not gonna do funky for you people. Like, there's just I can't do it, because you guys go home and you had a great night. I got to go drive to another city and do the same thing tomorrow night, and the same type of people are going to be giving me shots. I learned to say no. And I tell you, a lot of the performers, I don't care what they do, who never learned to say no, are probably dead, or they're in rehab centers.
Mm. Well, look, the question that was repeated quite a bit in the comments of the post. You've touched on it briefly. Certainly with the release of Paldemic, there's a bit of hope. What can people expect from Kenny and Spenny, not necessarily Kenny versus Spenny, for the foreseeable future? What's next?
Well, Kenny wrote up some stuff, and I helped him a little with it. I think Sebastian helped too. I don't. There's a bunch of. I mean, I think when you're dealing with us, you're dealing with what I call a reality comedy duo. I could see us doing a lot of different things in terms of television ideas for a series. I think the one that we're looking at now is one that's going to, it's a little narcissistic. It's more of an exploration of our relationship and our past than Kenny versus Spenny was very much about the competitions. And rarely did we get too far away from what that was about. So I think we're looking at more of a documentary of our relationship. But having said that, I could see us, doing a kind of, where we go hang out with, Amish people one week, the next week, S&M, people, and then neo-Nazis, and then, we're just, Kenny and Spenny, and we have all that baggage with us in terms of the comedy. So I don't know, really, you just don't know. Almost done. You just don't know what we're going to end up doing.
Look, I know you got to go. You got a family to take care of.
I have trouble with the relationship stuff, but from the feedback I'm hearing from Paldemic, people, again, I don't like to think about it too much, right? Yeah. I'm too close to it, they say. So I just go with the punches. If that's the show that gets picked up, I'll do that. If it's something else, or if it's nothing, I'll do something else. You just have to, do as much as you can do, but you're never going to get everything you want, and you roll with whatever comes your way if you're lucky enough to get anything, right?
Definitely, man. Well, we hope it gets picked up. We hope something special comes of it. We loved it. We thought Paldemic was awesome, dude. So, and thank you so much for being here. We know that you got a family to take care of at the moment, so we're going to let you go. You've been here with us for an hour and a half. We really appreciate your time. Christ,
I'm a blowhard. Okay. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, man. We
take care of yourself, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Oh, yeah. I want to just say something. Australia, you've always been very good to Kenny versus Spenny. And I knew that because I used to fly a lot from Toronto to Los Angeles and back and forth. And in LA, the LAX, the airport, the Qantas gate was right beside the Air Canada gate. And that's when we first started noticing that as Australians knew who we were. We would have no way of really, they do a deal. We don't know if 10 people are watching it or 100,000 people are watching it. But on behalf of Kenny and myself, I'd like to thank Australia for the support because we felt it and we appreciate it.
Awesome, well, you're welcome, man. We love you. We love Kenny. Take care of yourself, man. Hope to see you real soon.
All right. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks, mate.
Take care. All right, guys. Take it easy. That's it for Nightrain Radio this week. We'll be back next year.
Next year. That's it.
Next year. That's it for the year, guys. Take it easy. We'll talk to you soon. Love ya. Eat shit and die.
About supper time, went to the old truck patch, get me a mess of pork salad, honey, and carried home in a cotton sack, pork salad in it. I said, okay, don't get your granny. Everybody said it was a shame, your mama working on a chain gang. Said he had a bad back. Mama was prone to stealing honey, watermelon from a hood truck hat, pork salad in it. I said, Peter, get your granny. Everybody said it was a shame, oh, mama working on a chain gang.
Nightrain want to thank our buds all the way from Brisbane, Broken Skateboarding Co., who made all today's recording possible. You will never fall off your skateboard again if you're wearing the gear made by skaters for skaters. Find them online and tell them Lenny sent you.